these that are the hardest for all the men and women of the U.S. Border Patrol. It is always hard when you lose a young and dedicated agent. The job of the Border Patrol is inherently dangerous. Our men and women deal with a constant presence of the unknown.
The FBI says it's investigating the death of a U.S. border agent as a, quote, potential assault. His partner injured and says he doesn't remember anything that happened that night, leaving a number of questions about what exactly happened. Joining me now, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Thank you for joining us this morning. Sir, can you fill us in on what you know about what happened that night?
So first of all, happy Thanksgiving. Obviously, this is a horrible tragedy for our border agents. But just like our investigations in the AG's office, the FBI is not just going to disclose very much until they know a lot more. But I would say this, the fact that they're offering a reward, the fact that Texas is offering a reward, I'd be shocked, given the circumstances, if this was not an assault.
I think a lot of us are confused by that terminology. What does it, I mean, what does it mean to be investigated as potential assault? Originally, authorities, Border Patrol authorities, or officials, I should say, came out and said that this was an ambush. It appeared to be an ambush. So can you clarify how this is being investigated? We do know that they were found in a culvert roughly 30 miles from the southern border. They appeared, it has been described, that they were attacked with rocks. So how is this investigation playing out right now?
My guess is it's challenging, given that they were left there alone, to find actually who was involved in the assault, which is why they're offering rewards to find that information out. Until they find somebody that was actually there, it's going to be difficult to know exactly what happened.
And what do we know about the Border Patrol agent that did survive this? Our thoughts are certainly with the Border Patrol agent who lost his life. He leaves behind a young son. The other agent is surviving right now. He's in the hospital, but we're told he is saying he doesn't remember anything from that night.
Again, very difficult to figure out what happened if he doesn't remember. Hopefully, over time, some of that will come back to him, and I'm sure that's what they're hoping for.
Do we know if any weapons were pulled, if any shots were fired by the agents?
At this point, I don't think that happened, but we don't know for sure. And I don't think we're going to know until we either find somebody at the scene or this agent that can't remembers something about what actually happened.
And we know the agent who died, he had traumatic head injuries, a number of broken bones he suffered during that attack. You keep mentioning this award that is being given for any information regarding this attack. Governor Greg Abbott has made it clear. I don't know what the amount is at right now. Do you know off the top of your head?
My understanding is the feds have offered $25,000 and the governor's offered $20,000. We'll see if that goes up, but at least right now that's what's out there.
Do you know of any phone calls coming in?
I have not heard of any, but this is certainly a way to incentivize this. And obviously, again, if there's nobody at the scene, this is the only way we can get information, is if we can have somebody call in and let us know what happened.
Have you come up with any theories in your mind as to what happened that night?
I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, if you think about the fact that one person died, the other person was severely injured, they were claiming, the AP, I guess, was claiming that they fell off a bridge 8 or 9 feet and that it was into the sand. I would be shocked if that's what happened. I'm pretty certain we had an assault by probably drug smugglers or the like.
You know, the president has used this as an opportunity to bring up the border wall. Is that something that you believe should happen?
Absolutely. This is further indication. This is why the people in my state are so concerned about that. We are very concerned about border security, whether it's the wall or whether it's greater technology or more border agents. This is the type of issue that we're all concerned about along the border.
All right, Ken Paxton, we really thank you for coming on. A holiday week, an important story that we will continue to see more details as they emerge, and this investigation is ongoing.
For reaction from San Diego, let's bring in Robert Heyer. He's a cousin of Brian Terry, who was another border agent killed, and the chairman of the Brian Terry Foundation. And of course, remember, Mr. Terry was that Border Patrol agent killed in the line of duty back in 2010 in the infamous Fast and Furious scandal. Robert and the foundation have been assisting the family of the slain border agent during this tough time, and we're delighted he's with us. This is just another sickening example of the violence at the border, and people think it's just at the border itself. But as we know, these cartels and other thugs and criminals are operating within 18 miles inside the United States with assault weapons. In this case, presumably, they pelted the victim with rocks and other things. Your reaction?
That's right, Laura. You know, it's a violent environment, very kinetic, just as we saw with Brian Terry. Those armed RIP crews were professional criminals that came and went back across the border time and time again to do one thing, and that was create violence on the American side of the border. In this case, we believe that Border Patrol agent Rogelio Martinez was ambushed by individuals. He was then violently beaten, and thank God his partner survived, who was also gravely, badly injured. But it's a very, very violent environment on the border, and I think Americans have had enough. They elected a president to secure the border, and look, we exist to do one thing, and that is to speak out on issues that affect the safety and well-being of Border Patrol agents. This was the 39th Border Patrol agent killed in the line of duty since 2003. Enough is enough. We have to secure the borders.
I want to know exactly what these animals did to Agent Martinez. I don't want it whitewashed. I want to know exactly what they did to him. And I want to know who these people are. They better be apprehended. And if they're coming across the Mexican border, maybe they're Central Americans, we don't know. But all I know is President Trump was ridiculed and laughed at when he was said, build the wall. They're pouring into this country with criminals and thugs and drugs and guns and all sorts of human trafficking going on. It's dangerous for the migrants who are crossing the border who do want a better life, and our heart goes out to them. It's dangerous for them. And unfortunately, for American citizens, it's dangerous for us. It's not just the people of Texas or the Border Patrol. Border Patrol's on the front line. But these people end up in Northern Virginia. They end up in Minneapolis. They end up in Boston, Hartford, L.A., Oakland, and everywhere in between. This is what a failed government system does to the people of its own country. This is another wake-up call, and I know President Trump watches this show, and this better be the final straw for these members of Congress. Build this wall. Get this done.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Look, Americans are gravely concerned. I think the wake-up call was when Brian Terry was killed almost 7 years ago next month.
Well, apparently not. Apparently not. If it was a wake-up call, we would have Congress not going home for, long recesses, would have Congress who are actually in town saying we're going to allocate real money to this border, we're going to hire more agents, we're not going to have drones flying over and reporting back to headquarters. We're going to have people on the ground. They're going to be turned right back at the border. And if you protest the Border Patrol agents, we're going to arrest you, too, because you're probably violating the law, because you're interfering with the actions of a law enforcement officer. I'm sorry. His family deserves justice here, just like you helped Brian Terry's family get their own justice. And you can close it out. I'm just so infuriated at this. This should never be happening in the United States of America.
Well, I think the American public spoke out when they elected President Trump as president. Now, Congress, maybe they still need to wake up. I can tell you, though, that when elected officials, either on the local, county, state, or federal level, speak out and fan the flames of protesters looking to protest against Border Patrol, and that is completely unacceptable. We are Americans together through bad and good times, we have to support these men and women.
They don't want bad or good times. Now, Robert, you're being too charitable. The people who are protesting these agents from carrying out their duty are part of the problem. They are acting criminally in what they're doing, and that's all they are, is they're criminal. They're not protesters. They themselves are acting in a criminal fashion. So all the platitudes about we're all united. No, we're not all united. Some people want the laws violated. Other people want the rule of law. That's it. That's what's going on. Robert, I really appreciate your joining us. Thank you so much for what you're doing for these Border Patrol families. We need more people like you.
As you heard, we lost a Border Patrol officer. We're going to have the wall. It's part of what we're doing. We need it. That's rough territory. That's where the drugs are coming in. A lot of things are happening along the border, the southern border, and we're going to straighten it out.
So awful. President Trump doubling down on his call for a wall after a border agent was brutally attacked and beaten to death by illegal immigrants. Here to discuss is former ICE agent and Border Patrol officer David Ward. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
You know, this agent was 36 years old. He'd been a Border Patrol agent since 2013. Goes out to do his job, will not ever go home again. I mentioned earlier I saw online pictures of him with his son standing there, so proud of his dad. What do we need to do? And is this an indication that we have got to build that wall?
You know, we have a lot of talking heads down in Washington speaking about a wall and actually committing extortion as to getting the wall up there if they don't pass DACA or some other thing. Here we have a young man, 36 years old. He is the 142nd Border Patrol agent killed in the line of duty protecting our unsecured border that our politicians absolutely refuse to secure. You know, here we have a Thanksgiving coming up, and this little boy's without his dad because we have an unsecured border. We have another agent that's in the hospital injured from this brutal attack.
Yeah, beaten with rocks from what we know at this point, and certainly some additional information will come out about that. You mentioned the number of agents who have been killed. We know that there have been 39 just since 2003, and our Griff Jenkins was reporting at the top of the show that this makes the second Border Patrol agent killed just this year. So this particular area of the border, what can you tell us about it?
Well, it's a desolate area in Van Horn. It goes all the way down to Big Bend National Park, and it's a drug trafficking haven. And these agents, when they go out at night, they are usually alone with a backup partner somewhere nearby that will go track aliens that are bringing drug loads up to the Interstate 10, which will then be transported around the United States. But again, this comes down to an unsecured border. Now, another thing you need to keep in mind, there's been over 8,000 recorded assaults on Border Patrol agents since 2003. That's a 67% increase from last year alone. And it's all because of sanctuary cities and the lax enforcement of immigration law that give these aliens or embolden the aliens to come into the United States, go into sanctuary cities. They know they're going to be protected, and it's a safe haven.
So even if we do have the border wall built, I mean, it seems like these agents are not also getting the backup that they need.
No, they have air marine operations. They can't even get helicopters to back them up most of the time. And once in a while, they'll get a helicopter out there to help them. But most of the time, they have to rely on local assets for helicopters. We have the equipment, but they're not helping the agents out in the field track these aliens down and give them the light support, the forward-looking flare devices, and everything else the agents need out in the field while they're on the ground by themselves tracking these aliens, you know, miles, hundreds of miles in some cases from the local sector headquarters.
Yeah, and I think that's where perhaps the mainstream media does a disservice because, you know, a lot of people, unfortunately, think about like little children passing over the border, but no, what they're dealing with are these drug smugglers who are trying to cross in and out.
Well, that's the case. We don't know everybody that comes across the border. In fact, there's 1 out of 5 illegal aliens that are apprehended coming across the border. There's another 4 that get by for every one that's caught. And this has been a standard statistic since for the 34 years I was in. So we don't know what's coming across, and until we secure that border, we're never going to know what's coming across. It could be terrorists. It could be, God knows what they're bringing across.
And you're right. Those 4 head straight to the sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, sanctuary colleges, and more. David Ward, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
I was saying, okay, have a great day.
David Wohl joins me now, an attorney and conservative commentator, and Matt Bennett, co-founder of Third Way and a former deputy assistant to President Clinton. Thank you both for being here today. I just want to play one more soundbite that was reaction from the president today on the issue of this border agent and the wall. Watch this.
We talk about the wall. We're going to have the wall. It's It's part of what we're doing. We need it. That's rough territory. That's where the drugs are coming in. A lot of things are happening along the border, the southern border, and we're going to straighten it out.
David, would a wall have stopped this incident?
Well, it looks like it would have. These desolate areas along the border are typically where these agents get ambushed. And, now you realize that the wall was far more than a campaign gimmick by President Trump. It was a critically important part of what got him elected. And right now, the House Subcommittee on Homeland Security just approved $10 billion for that wall last month, including $5 billion for more agents and improvements in the legal ports of entry. That needs to get passed by the Senate. Perhaps something needs to get tied to DACA, the deferred entry program for the 800,000 potential recipients of that. Because guess what, Martha? This has got to be passed. How many more of these tragic murders need to take place before the Democrats get on board? It needs to happen, and needs to happen quickly.
All right. So, Matt, I mean, that's the potential deal that's on the table, to do, to accept DACA, to allow DACA to continue. Children who were brought here on their, not on their own volition by their parents under the age of 16, and that they would be able to stay in return for some of these serious measures towards building a wall.
Well, look, I think we need serious measures. There's no doubt. Let me be clear, though. Dave doesn't know who killed these guys. This is a horrible, tragic event, but we have no idea exactly what happened. What we do know, though, is that most Republicans from border regions, the ones who represent New Mexico and Arizona, 800 miles of the Texas border represented by Will Hurd, those Republicans think a wall is a bad idea. They say, Congressman Hurd has said, it's a third-century solution for a 21st century problem. We need to take further measures to ensure that people aren't crossing the border, but we have all kinds of technology, drones and other technology that can work just as well in regions where a wall, which would cost upwards of $100 billion, just makes no sense at all.
It seems to me that the issue of the wall, it's a case where the words are so powerful. For some people, the word wall is something that they want very much. For other people, they want security, but they really don't want it to be called a wall. And if it's something that has sort of a technological barrier and ramps up border agents along there, they're probably okay with that. So how does the president seek some middle ground here, David?
Well, for one thing, ironically, the 800,000 DACA recipients will be among those protected by the wall. You can call it what you will. Israel has one that protects Israelis from terrorists coming into their country. They actually exist all over the world. But when America decides to put one up, we've got political issues that seem to trump the issue, if you will. Look, the reality is this isn't an issue between Mexico and Americans, between Hispanics and white folks. This is an issue of national security. And I can't tell you how many Hispanic, Latino friends who are in favor of the wall because they're critically concerned about their family's safety. Again, the DACA recipients will be among those protected, and it's got to take place. The political problems with calling it the wall are completely secondary to the national security issues that right now are critically important.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you both. Thanks a lot.